everything that you put into it.
Right, and that's what I was about to say is that
looks like we got us another hit.
Time and your money.
Tucker Carlson is on fire, since he's gone to Twitter. And so check it out. It says Tucker Carlson accuses Joe Biden of being a wannabe dictator by comparing him to North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un while blasting the media for spreading his propaganda. Let's play a little bit of this, Tucker.
Dictators have that look. You know one when you see one. Dictators build cults of personality around themselves, and they use those cults to deny the glaringly obvious. In his later years, to name just one example, North Korean dictator Kim Il-sung developed an enormous baseball-sized tumor on the back of his neck. It was huge. It was grotesque. It was right there. You couldn't ignore it. You couldn't possibly not see it. But in North Korea, state media did ignore it. They pretended it didn't exist. And so, in some important sense, it didn't. If a tumor grows on a neck, but no one acknowledges it, is it really there? Thankfully, nothing like that is happening in our country or ever will. If Joe Biden ever developed some profound physical or medical problem that was obvious to everybody, journalists would say something. This is not North Korea. We don't have state media here. If Joe Biden was, say, incapable of completing a full sentence or mistook his sister for his wife, suddenly started falling down in public for no reason, the New York Times would report on that and then get to the bottom of what was actually happening. That would be its duty in a free country like ours. It's not like they would cover it up. The very idea of a cover-up sounds like a conspiracy theory, a dangerous one, actually, so stop it. And by the way, if Joe Biden was a wannabe dictator, he'd have the family to match. All dictators do. Saddam Hussein had Uday and Qusay. They were princelings who lived above the law, indulging their most decadent fantasies with total confidence. They would be never held to account by the police. As the sons of a dictator, they knew they could do exactly what they wanted. And so that's what they did. There's no one like that around Joe Biden. He doesn't have weird sex scandals at the heart of his family that no one in the media will ever talk about. He doesn't have a ne'er-do-well former nightclub-owning brother who's made a living for 30 years by being related to him. Not at all. That's dictator stuff. Joe Biden doesn't award ridiculous inflated titles to his relatives that the media are then required to take seriously. He doesn't call people doctor who didn't go to medical school and then force you to nod along like it's real when everyone knows it isn't. Nikolai Ceausescu did that with his wife, Elena. Joe Biden would never do that. Nor does Joe Biden dress like a dictator. He doesn't do photo ops in mirrored sunglasses driving a sports car to convince you that he isn't frail and senile, but instead powerful, virile, and wise. That's just not his style. If Joe Biden was a dictator, he'd be wearing epaulets and carrying a tasseled riding crop. And he isn't yet, so calm down. If he was a dictator, Biden's speeches would look like Nuremberg rallies, a blood-red backdrop, armed soldiers by his side, screaming about crushing his eternal enemies. Honestly, Biden did come close to that one time last September at a speech in Philadelphia, but it wasn't in any sense dictatory. It was necessary. As MSNBC assured us at the time, quote, Biden aimed to showcase his faith in the military apparatus and its ability to back the democratic order. See, it was about democracy, not dictatorship. No cause for alarm. He is not a dictator. A dictator would stockpile ammunition for his own bureaucrats, including his tax collectors. He'd redefine the legal code to make disloyalty to the regime the most serious crime. He'd claim dominion over the most intimate parts of his citizens' lives. He defined what attitudes they were allowed to have about sex and religion and how to raise their families. He would even, in his final grandiose stage of dictatorship, claim ownership of their children. And Joe Biden wouldn't do that. And to prove he would never do that, Biden just this week released this video.
These are our kids. These are our neighbors. Not somebody else's kids. They're all our kids. And our children are the kite strings that hold our national ambitions aloft. It matters a great deal how we treat everyone in this country. LGBTQ Americans, especially children, you're loved, you're heard, and this administration has your back.
See? Joe Biden isn't saying your children belong to him like a dictator would. He's saying something very different from that. He's saying America's children are, quote, our children, not his alone, ours. You share your children with Joe Biden evenly, right down the middle with alternating weekends. you've got joint custody with Joe Biden, and you can thank heaven that you do. A nation is like a family. Every family has a head, a father. That's Joe Biden, our nation's father. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is now his fatherland. Just don't call it a dictatorship, or we'll have to issue a statement disavowing you.
Man, he's good at what he does, but I have to say, the idea of us caring about the children, as far as like, our children, I think those are good things that Biden is saying. Even Tucker is kind of twisting it a bit there, but it's like, it's the idea of caring about your neighbor, caring about your neighbor and caring about the children of the United States and like the future of the United States, basically.
I think that Joe Biden saying that is something way more diabolical than what is on the surface. Like, it's way more. He wants to be able to control. Like, he wants to be able to say what you should or could or not. Because I mean, this whole thing with these kids, like, they're trying to take parent rights away. Like, that's some of the legislation that they've been working on. So, like, for me to be able to, or my, whoever, to not be able to make certain decisions for their child. If the child decides they want to, ruin the rest of their life with mutilation, getting their junk cut off, and taking these puberty blocker things, they want to do it. Like, the government is going to not only give them the money for it, but go hide them while they're going through these services where the parents don't even have a chance to, like, they can't do anything about it. So that's like the whole narrative that's behind this whole, these are our children. This is not your kids. These are our kids. He's not trying to be fair. Like, just saying that, like, he cares about, these children so much. It's more so the whole idea behind, like, where he wants to go with that whole message. It's not, it's just no. And no, this my child, my son is my son. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain things that I can do in the community that I can, kind of group everybody in and try to help where I can, but I can't just come and tell nobody, what they should be doing with their kid, or, like, no, it doesn't work that way. But when it comes to socialist, communist, totalitarian type governments, yeah, that's the kind of speech they use. So be careful trying to support something that
Yeah, and I think it's a stretch too to call Biden a dictator.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, technically, he's not, because I mean, him having the executive branch only allows him to go so far. But there was times that he has definitely acted out and had speeches that was very similar to that type of, like, the rhetoric he was speaking was very forceful. Not saying, hey guys, let's work together and do this, that, and the other. Nah, y'all go and get this thing done. Like, don't make me come put something on your ass type of talk to the people. Very brash at one, and like now, when people are looking at him, he's kind of feeble. Getting, he's at the age where, like, his mind is not there fully. Like, maybe he's working on 60%, 50%.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
This one.